when I was in Atlanta, when I was in that basement studio in Atlanta, I remember it had a garage door that opened to the outside, and it would get mosquitoes down there, and I was kind of in the back corner of it, the furthest away from the garage door, and sometimes they get in there. It was such a dank kind of place to be. There was like no natural light, and it was like cinder block walls, and they weren't painted or anything, concrete floor. But it was in town, and instead of driving 45 minutes, it was like I could get there in like 10 minutes back and forth. It was really easy to get to. No traffic. I didn't have to cross over 40 or 85, and I didn't have to cross over 20. And those are like two big things. If you had to cross those two roads, and you're like in for a lot of traffic. But so there'd be mosquitoes down there sometimes, and they might bite me a couple times before I could find them, and just drive me crazy. And I remember one time I had this teapot on my wheel head, and I was like working on, it had 4 little feet, and I was trying to get it level, and there was a mosquito buzzing around me, and I thought, I know I'm gonna break this teapot, like trying to kill this mosquito, but just gotta do it. And sure enough, like, knocked the teapot over, going after the mosquito. So this, I throw like a bowl in the bottom area here, bowl shape. I'm throwing this closed form. If you've ever been by my space, you've seen some of these. So I'm gonna push this up pretty close to being closed. And this is again one of those times where I'm gonna actually throw the pot out from underneath this opening, and try not to push that opening out at all. I've done this technique it's the same technique that I use for the salt and pepper shakers, like a small version of this. I've made teapots with this, like a closed form, and then you can add like a neck and a opening to any sort of part of it, and a spout anywhere, and it can come up higher. You can like offset, the back can be over here, the spout can be over here. And it offers just like a wide range of different approaches to putting it together, to puzzling together the parts. All right, so here's when I'm actually trying to get this to go in, and my inside finger isn't pushing up at all. It's just supporting, and I'm really using like the nail, this corner bit of my finger with a nail, and I'll bite into the clay a little bit and ride that in towards the middle. Might need to make this a little bit smaller to get it all, close it up. I'm going to try to recenter that clay in the spout, or in the top opening. Getting closer. So I don't want to push back up against the clay there from the inside, or else it'll be a battle the whole time trying to get this down and in. And it wasn't the best closing here. And that's a spot that oftentimes wants to get an S-crack in it. So I have to patch it from below before it dries out too much. So once it's closed, I can use a rib on this and shape it. And then I need one more tool. My screwdriver, my flathead screwdriver. My very expensive flathead screwdriver. All right, and then I'm just going to push. So instead of going straight in from the side here, which will make me dig clay and it'll peel it off, I'm going to go from the side and just push that clay in. So I want to hold my hand steady and get the screwdriver even and level. And I need enough space from that top that that the clay has time to go up and turn into what would be the ceiling on the inside. If I get too close to that and I start to cut into that ceiling a little bit, or I don't have enough space, then it won't sit down over top. So tomorrow I'll cut this off.
Did you start with it like sideways this way and then move?
No, just the whole time like that, pushing into the side. Oh, and the other thing is it's got to be on a vertical wall. You can't have it if it's at an angle. Then when you take out that gap of clay where you've put, then they're not going to fit together. One's going to be smaller or larger than the one below. And the last thing I'll do to it is before I cut it off, I'll put a little hole in it. And I do it up right along that top line. And I put it in and I move it to the side just slightly and back out. And the reason I do that, I don't just stick it in and pull it out, is because if I get slip on the inside and pull it back and that hole clogs with slip, then I'll come tomorrow and it'll be like leaning up on one side. It's like hard to believe how much it dries and how much the pressure builds in there. And the softest spot will be the bottom, so that'll be the spot that gives. And then I just need to cut this off. And this, I'll actually flip it over, and then the top, flip it over into the bottom and trim it tomorrow. So I need to leave it on there. I'll cut it, but I'll leave it on. All right, and that's it for today. All right, so I asked my dentist at some point if he had any like dental tools that he could give me. And he returns, like the next time I go, he returns with 3 bags of like about 30 in each bag. And these make great cutoff tools. So this is the little hook end here, stainless steel. And when I do this, I'm going to get my fingers gently on the sides here. And I'm going to get this right under the rim and start cutting. And at some point, it'll be enough. I can peel that off. I trim this gently. Smooth over that. And then that becomes the chuck to hold this. This is a little on the soft side to do this with, but not a groove, I just have to cut it back enough. I'm cutting this junk off the bottom that I got on there the other day when I made it. And I'll patch that hole on the inside. I'll patch where I put those together with a little fob of clay. And in order to hold this down so it doesn't pop up and cause me problems, I'll put a little cap in it, rest my finger on it. Now because it's soft, it's probably going to move a little bit as I push it out and trim it. And I just look at the depth of this here and I think about how wide this is right here and try to match those up to begin with, and then I can work from there. If I need to take more off, I can. And I like to have, like right now I have this like little ledge right in here. Do you guys see that right there? So when I wax, I can wax right up to that line and then everything drops back from there, and so I can make sure that they don't stick together.
Can't really see the
that like little ledge right there, and then it drops back.
Oh, okay.
And so that little ledge will get waxed. And so when I flip this onto there and I have this, the bottom part of the jar coming up into the top, keep it from sticking, glaze from sticking. And that should just fit right on there. It's a little bit small, the lid. You can decide whether you want to trim it off the bottom or the top, depending on where you have the most clay. If you're doing this for the first time, you might find that your walls are thicker than you would like them to be, and so it might be better to trim it off the bottom. Take a little bit of clay out of that wall that you've pushed in. And I also find that I can get this to be as tight as possible and just like the perfect fit. And when they dry differently. And the top usually doesn't go in as much as the bottom does. I try not to let it get to me.
And you dry it with the lid on?
I dry it with the lid on there, and because I've closed this up in the top, and I often have problems with that spot, I dry them very slowly. If they dry too fast, a lot of times I'll get that S crack in the top. And that also, again, depends on the clay body you use. But putting this little button in helps. So I'm going to score this. And especially this one, I didn't do a great job closing it up. And I used to just put a ball on there. Let's see if there's enough moisture in this. Yeah. I used to just put a ball on there and smush it down. And then I thought, I'm just putting so much pressure on that. So then I just squeeze this out to be flat, so I don't have to put as much pressure to get it to where I want it to be in the end. Put my finger on the back side, squish it, wiggle it. And then I've got this button spot there, which doesn't look great. So in order to make it look like it's a little bit better, I've got my little stamp, CDT. This Sterling, who owns Diamond Jewelers, I think that's how you pronounce it, over on New Garden Road. He takes classes downtown at the Art Alliance, but he's got this machine that'll cut into anything. He says it's like a really $40,000 Dremel, I think is how he referred to it. But he uses it for jewelry. But I just wrote out my signature and drew a little picture of a bird, and he just cut that into a piece of wood for me, and it looks like my handwriting and my drawing. So those sit together. It's too soft to trim the bottom now, but I just flip the bottom. You got it. I'll just flip it over when it's leather hard and take the lid off and trim that bottom.
How do you usually decorate those?
I usually draw something on top here. I love it like this surface here is this palette for me to draw like a bird on or a rabbit head.